You think you know someone, really well. You know them all your life, it feels like. But then you read something, you find out some fascinating information, and that's what happened when I read Bill Fee's book. It is called Memoirs of Vietnam, 1967. Bill Fee, I should tell you, was our former vice president and general manager here at WCPO. I always knew you were a decorated war hero. I always knew you were in Vietnam. What I did not know was the trials, the tribulations that you went through, not just as a young man becoming a soldier, then as a soldier, then recuperating from your injury and then in your life. What made you, you wrote this when you were recovering in a hospital bed.
I was in the hospital for 10 months following my being wounded in 1967, and I wrote the first edition of the memoir back then. But after I was discharged from the Army in 1968, I put the manuscript on a shelf, and it just gathered dust for about 45 years. And I really felt that I needed to update the memoirs because we've had several reunions with my rifle company. There was a lot that happened to Vietnam veterans in the 1970s that needed to be detailed in the book. And as I tell everyone, Tanya, this book has a happy ending. And that was another motivation, because when you read many books about Vietnam, there aren't many happy endings. And this one has a happy ending, and I just felt compelled to write it.
You went through a lot of trauma, and you said that this was a catharsis to write this book.
The time in Vietnam was actually more bearable than the 1970s were. In Vietnam, we had a band of brothers we could depend upon. We were very close. But when Vietnam vets came home in the early 70s and mid-70s, they weren't treated very well. I wasn't treated very well. A lot of Vietnam vets went through depression, post-traumatic stress, as it's called, and I experienced that myself, but there was no diagnosis of PTSD in 1974 when I started feeling the depression. So I sort of had to climb out of the hole by myself, and that needed to be shared, because today the young men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan they're being honored, they're being welcomed home, and they're getting the care that they so dearly need.
Bill Fee's shoulder was blown off. No, you don't have a shoulder actually at all.
No, it was a rocket-propelled grenade, an RPG exploded next to me and destroyed my shoulder.
He is one of the finest men I've ever known. It was such a pleasure to get to work underneath you, and I am so thrilled to have read your memoir of Vietnam, 1967. Guys, you can get it at Amazon.com, Barnes, booksellers on Fountain Square downtown, and Barnes & Noble in Florence.
Thank you for having me back. I miss you, Tanya. It's so wonderful to be back here at Channel 9.
It was wonderful to read your beautiful memoir. Thanks for sharing it with all of us.
Thank you very, very much.
Well.